What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back here with our waiver wire week 1 editions. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I will be dropping waiver wires, rankings, buy lows, sell highs, all that good stuff. You're going to want to win your fantasy football championships. So, like I said, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. You want to know this guy or that guy, I'll let you know. Start sits, all that good stuff. But yeah, let's hop into our waiver wire guys. We're going to be talking running backs to start the list off. First up, we've got Elijah Mitchell, running back for the San Francisco 49ers. Had a huge game in the absence of Raheem Mostert, who went down to injury and went on the IR. Is going to be out for a good chunk of the season. Trey Sermon missed a game already with an ankle injury, so potentially Elijah Mitchell could be the RB1 for the San Francisco 49ers. In week 2, I believe the 49ers are playing the Philadelphia. I think they're playing Philly next week. Yep, they're playing the Eagles this week. Should be a good matchup for that running back Packers week after. Another good matchup, assuming Sermon isn't back by then. But yeah, Elijah Mitchell would probably be my top running back if I'm looking for a weekly start. Mark Ingram also had a nice game, 26 carries for 85 yards. That was against Jacksonville, though. That'd be the thing I would look out for. I don't know how many games Mark Ingram's going to get 26 carries in this year when the game script's going to be that positive and they can continue to win. I think David Johnson will be the back on the field in games where they're trailing, so keep that in mind. But I do think Mark Ingram with that type of volume is definitely worth an add at the running back position. He's a starter in Texas and for Houston, and it's pretty clear. So I think Mark Ingram is also worth an add. Another guy to keep an eye out if he's out there in your leagues would be James White. He had 4 carries for 12 yards, but 7 targets, which he turned into 6 receptions. He was one of the most targeted players in the Patriots offense and had the long reception of the day. So I would look into him as a nice back-end RB2 flex play guy you can plug in any week if he's out in your waivers. Another guy for deeper leagues. Starting to get in the deeper league running back ads. Kenneth Gainwell, he had 9 for 37 in week 1, was able to punch in a touchdown. He looks like the backup to Miles Sanders. Just a guy to keep an eye on, not necessarily adding him unless I'm in a really deep league and I'm desperate. But, if Sanders goes down, it does look like it'd be Kenneth Gainwell a step up. And he's a talented running back, and if he gets some decent third down work, he could potentially be fantasy viable. Although we saw Miles Sanders lead the running back position in targets, so like I said, he's a deeper add. Another guy, Jamichael Hasty, running back for the San Francisco 49ers. If let's say Trey Sermon's out again with that ankle injury, Elijah Mitchell goes down, I think Hasty is the next guy up. Jamichael is the next. Jamichael's the next guy up, not McHasty. That's not a person. I think Jamichael Hasty will be the next running back up if all those guys go down. So just a guy to keep an eye on. As well as Carlos Hyde. He had 9 carries for 44 yards and 2 receptions. Out carried James Robinson in week 1. He's a guy to keep an eye on as well. If that trend continues, I'd be adding him. He's worth an add in deeper leagues as well. Let's move on to the wide receiver position. My number 1 add for wide receiver position is Sterling Shepard, controlling 9 targets in week 1, which he turned into 7 for 113 and 1. Had a big time game. Looks to be could be the one in New York, and they look like they could be trailing in a lot of games. Got beat pretty bad by Denver. So yeah, I expect Sterling Shepard to be pretty solid all year. I think he's a really nice add if you need another boost at wide receiver. I'd be adding Sterling Shepard. If I need a wide receiver, he'd be the first guy I'd be adding. Next up, we've got Nelson Aguilar. Aguilar had 7 targets, which turned into 5 for 72 and 1. Aguilar is very enticing because he could be the number 1 receiver on this team. I think it's him or Jacoby Myers, who's also another add if he's out there. He had 9 targets, which he turned in for 6 for 44, and he played 74 to 75 snaps. I think both these receivers are going to get a good amount of targets in this Patriots offense. Mac Jones looked good in week 1. I think they're both worth adds if they're out there on your free agency list. So yeah, I'd be adding both of those players. Another guy to keep an eye out on is Zach Pascal. If you're in a little bit of a deeper league, he had 5 targets, which he turned in for 4 for 43 and 2. We've seen Pascal be relevant before with the Colts and for fantasy. I think there's not many receiving options in Indianapolis right now, so I think that trend could continue. So he's a guy to keep an eye out there for. Another guy I would be adding in fantasy football, Sami Watkins. He had 8 targets in week 1. He turned that into 4 receptions, 96 yards. That's a lot of targets to get from any quarterback, so I would snag up Sami Watkins if he's out there. And another guy, Zach Pascal and Bryan Edwards are the more deeper league ads. Edwards had 5 targets, which he turned in for 4 for 81. Wasn't heavily targeted, but was able to show some of that big playability. If he continues to progress, he'd be a guy I'd be willing to add to my roster. Like I said, if I'm in a deep league, I'd snag him if I could. But yeah, just guys to keep an eye on that back end. Keep looking at. Let's talk about these tight ends, though. Rob Gronkowski might be out there in your waivers. If you were desperate at tight end, I would definitely add him. I think he's probably tight end 6 or 7 every single week at worst. Had a great matchup last week with the Cowboys, but I do think, Brady trusts him. He's got that touchdown upside. He's got pretty high touchdown upside for any tight end. That's why I think he's a play. A lot of people are getting really desperate at the tight end position. He's a guy I would feel comfortable sticking in every single week into my lineup. He had 8 targets, 8 for 90, and 2 touchdowns is what he was able to do with it. Great game by him. Another tight end I would be adding if he's out there is Tyler Hickby. He looks attached to a high-powered LA Rams offense, which I've been talking about all offseason. He had 6 targets, which he turned in for 5 for 68. I would be looking out for him. He's getting targeted. They're a good offense. Matthew Stafford is going to score touchdowns with this team, and I think Higbee could be a big part of that. A deeper league ad is Jawan Johnson, tight end for the New Orleans Saints. He only had 3 targets, but he was able to turn that into 2 touchdowns. He's a guy I keep an eye on more so than anything. If he has another big game or gets 7 targets next week from Jameis, he'd be a guy I'd be looking to add if I was looking for a tight end spot. Okay, now we get to quarterbacks. My number 1 ad this week would probably be Jameis Winston after throwing 5 touchdowns against the Green Bay Packers, mainly because he's playing that Carolina Panthers defense next week. I think that's a pretty good matchup for most of the QBs that are out there on waivers. I'd be snagging him up if I needed a play this week. Or Jared Goff. He threw for 338 and 3, had 57 attempts against the San Francisco 49ers, who have a good defense. His offensive line looked pretty solid protecting him. For the most part, he was able to throw the ball, get it out there. Sewell looked good, so I think that he could have a good game against the Packers, especially if they get down and they need to continue to throw to come back, which is a good chance the Lions need to do it in a bunch of their games. So I would be adding Jared Goff if I need a quarterback play this week as well, and Jameis is gone. But that's who I'd be looking for at the quarterback position. Okay, so just to recap, my top running back ad right now would be Elijah Mitchell for this week. My top wide receiver ad would be Sterling Shepard. My top tight end ad, Rob Gronkowski. And my top QB ad would be Jameis Winston. If you guys are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below. I'll respond as always. This has been Fantasy Joe. Thank you guys for watching.